My name is Alicia Martin, the Director of Allied Health and Support Services. I'm joined today by my colleague who you'll meet shortly, Janelle Lolliger, and we're delighted to be here today to launch our PrEP for Cancer Surgery Prehabilitation Toolkit. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the custodians of the lands on which we're meeting today. So for us here at Parkville at Peter Mac, we're on the lands of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation and pay our respects to elders past and present. And we recognise that you're joining us from lots of virtual lands, and we welcome First Nations people from whichever lands you're on today. This project has been the culmination of 2.5 years of hard work, but I'm actually going to start a decade ago in reflecting on my arrival to Peter Mac. So I have a clinical background in running pulmonary rehab and cardiac rehab programs. And when I first came to Peter Mac as the Director of Allied Health, one of my early observations was that Allied Health was not particularly involved in the prehabilitation or rehabilitation journey of our oncology patients. There was a small prehab program being run by our anaesthetists and nursing staff, but it wasn't holistic in nature. And so we wrote a business case, and I'm very pleased to say that after 3 submissions, we were supported to inject physiotherapy, exercise physiology, nutrition and psychology, EFT, to create a really holistic, well-rounded rehabilitation service. And that service has been really well received by our patients, but also by our colleagues. And over the years, we've had lots of requests for people wanting to come, for example, on observerships or wanting to know what outcome measures we used, or even how we actually got the business case supported in the first place. And in a busy environment, as you'll appreciate, what we were starting to grapple with was how do we share our knowledge sustainably and efficiently when we're already busy running a busy service. And so really the concept of the toolkit came to fruition as a way to be able to sustainably do that. And quite fortuitously, literally only a couple of weeks after we, came to these group discussions about the toolkit, the WICMEC scale and spread grants came out. So the timing was impeccable, and we were successful in securing our scale and spread grant. So thanks to WICMEC for their support of the project. You'll see here that we've had a huge number of partners in this project, and I'd just like to thank particularly, obviously, WICMEC for the funding, but we've also worked closely with St Vincent's Health, Bendigo Health, Western Health, the Cancer Council, the West Metro, PHN, the Women's Hospital and Werribee Mercy. You'll see here a huge number of steering committee members, both comprised of clinical staff and academics, and also our consumers who've been so invaluable to the project. And so we'd like to thank everybody who's been involved in the project. You're going to hear a little bit later today from our clinical content leads who were the core project team members who really committed such hard work to this project. So we would like to officially thank them. Additionally, I'd like to thank Janelle Lolliger, who came onto the project with me as a co-PI at short notice. So thank you to Janelle for her contribution to the project. And then we really need to call out the efforts of Dr. Christina Prickett, who's been our phenomenal project manager. Christina has led this project through 2.5 years of really hard work to get us to this point. So taking us forwards in terms of the actual project, what I wanted to do was just talk a little bit first about the grant writing process that we had with WICMEC 2.5 years ago. And in writing that grant, I want to introduce to you a consumer that we had involved in that process, and her name was Tori. Tori was a lady in her 40s. She lived in Tasmania with her husband and 2 kids. And Tori was really motivated to help us write the grant because she was very driven to ensure that people had access to prehab. Tori had undergone her first surgery in Tasmania without any access to prehabilitation, and she was subsequently referred to Peter Mac for her second and much larger surgery. In getting to know Tori during the grant writing phase, she really was able to describe to me the impact that the prehab service had on her. So particularly, I remember her telling me about the impact that the psychologist had on her, giving her tools so that she was able to comfortably say goodbye to her family at the airport. She described to me that she had tools that, she used when she was lying in bed the night before her big procedure at Peter Mac, and even on the day of as she was being wheeled into theatre. She was also able to describe to me that being medically and physically optimised, she felt so much better straight after the operation. She felt that she could move straight on to doing all the breathing exercises she needed to do and the mobility exercises she needed to do, but also progress to oral intake. And so she was able to tell a stark contrast in her recovery, but also in her autonomy of care in having had access to our prehabilitation service. Sadly, there are no prehab services in Tasmania, which was one of the reasons why Tori was really driven to help us write this grant application. Sadly, Tori is no longer with us, but I want you to hold on to that story because I'm going to talk to you again about her and the legacy that she's leaving as we conclude our session today. I'm now going to hand over to Janelle Lolliger, who's going to give you a little bit more information on what is prehabilitation. Thanks, Janelle.
Thanks, Alicia. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we mean when we use the term prehabilitation or prehab. So prehabilitation refers to a multimodal intervention that happens before cancer treatment and aims to prepare and optimise a person's physical, nutritional and psychological health in the lead up to surgery or another treatment. So prehab really gives patients the opportunity to be well informed and really well involved in their own preparation and recovery. So importantly, prehab involves a risk assessment, it involves education, and typically it includes one or more components of exercise, diet, and psychological interventions. So the underlying theory behind prehab is to improve independent recovery. So this graph here shows the difference that prehab can make. So if you look at the green line in the diagram, it indicates a pathway of care, including prehab, where patients are optimised before surgery and having a better recovery post-surgery. And this is in comparison to the red line that you'll see, those following a standard pathway of care without prehab. And you can see what difference that makes in terms of physical fitness and recovery. So what about the evidence for prehab? Well, really, there is now a plethora of papers and evidence that's been published supporting multimodal prehab interventions. Some of the papers that you'll see here on the screen represent some of the large reviews that have been undertaken and give an indication to the growing volume of research that's now happening in the cancer prehab space. Much of the research that's been undertaken is in patients undergoing colorectal or upper GI surgery, but there's also growing evidence in other areas, including prehab before adjuvant treatments such as chemotherapy and radiotherapy as well. So how does prehab work in practice? Well, the common model of care that's used to implement prehab is based upon the triangle that you see on the screen, which was developed by the MacCallum Group in the UK. So it involves universal care, whereby all patients have access to universal information and care around prehab. And then as you move up the triangle, your risks are increased, the complexity is increased, and that's where you receive targeted and specialist interventions. So in addition to medical and nursing optimization, exercise, nutrition and psychology are the key interventions that are included. So just coming back to our assessment of the situation before this project started, the problem that we saw was that very few patients and services outside of Peter Mac had access to a comprehensive multimodal prehab program. So we knew that a number of barriers existed. However, two key factors seem to be driving this issue. So limited clinical expertise in prehab and knowledge and resourcing to run a program. So as an organisation, we were continuing to field requests from other providers, so people seeking information about developing, implementing and delivering prehab programs within their cancer services. So we really did see this problem as a health equity issue. So the opportunity was to share the knowledge that was held at Peter Mac, but also really to create a community of care providers with clinical expertise in this area. So our system-wide thinking led to this project. So our concept really was to develop a freely accessible web-based toolkit for both clinicians and patients. So focused on major cancer surgery, upper GI, lower GI, and gynecological surgery. And we wanted to better support both access and guidance for best practice care. But the resource that we wanted to create, we wanted it to be practical and useful for health services and also of high quality. So the benefits of such an idea were really clear. We wanted the toolkit to support the scaling of multimodal prehab through enabling health services to develop and implement prehab services within their own local context. And critically, we saw the potential for the downstream positive effect and the improvement of outcomes for people with cancer. So the project that we undertook, you can see the aims here, and really they were twofold. So to co-design our prehab toolkit and then to evaluate its acceptability and usefulness. So we did this through a number of different means. We held a series of co-design workshops collectively with health professionals and consumers, and they really helped shape what the toolkit would look like and in what form it would take. We had clinical leads that were there to really drive the development of what went into the toolkit. We also had expert input at this stage. Once the toolkit was drafted, it was looked at and evaluated by 3 health services, and then it was finalised with expert input from international experts in prehab. So now I'd just like to show you a video which really covers off and showcases the clinical leads that took part in the project and gives some perspectives on their experience of this project.
Putting the prehab toolkit together with all the other clinicians, it was a great learning into how collaborative and complementary all the services are, all the different disciplines, and how we're all focused on the one thing, which is to help the patients. But it was so lovely seeing it from the perspective of the different disciplines and just being reminded how, even though we've got the same focus and we're so complementary, we've each got our dedicated scope of practice and methods, but it's the same outcome, which is to help the patients.
The biggest value I got from this was learning and really immersing myself in the co-design component of it, particularly doing the front end of the project. We were heavily co-designing that component and working with healthcare professionals as well as patients, which was really beneficial.
Working as a multidisciplinary team as well was definitely a highlight. Working with, physio, nutrition, doctors, psychologists, everyone. It was just a really good way of looking at things, hearing their perspectives, hearing the way they go about it, hearing what they thought prehab was really interesting.
I got to realise how important having the right people in your corner is, and having the right people not just in running a project or setting up a service, but also for patients, having the right people in their corner to empower them and support them through one of the most challenging times they're going to step into. And this project has really shown that.
One of the challenges was the fact that we all had time for the project, but all of our time fell on different days. So inevitably, one of the issues was that we wouldn't be able to all attend meetings. But luckily, we had a great project manager in Christina, who communication was amazing, who kept us all flowing in the right direction, kept us all updated. And I think the team just worked really well together.
This time we're working under Christina, which is fantastic. Being able to tap into her project management skills and her vision was really able to learn a lot, and certainly an area of passion for us all that I guess, probably 7-8 years ago, we didn't know we had that passion.
Working with the consumers, particularly the consumer focus group, was really great. Just to hear the consumer's perspective of what they wanted from us in the project as well. So that really made us think about how we were going to present this, and it did come up, they did come up with some surprises about what they actually did want in the toolkit. So yeah, that was a real positive as well.
I think the most satisfying part of the project was actually seeing the website and seeing all the information we've put on come to fruition, and then the joys of web designing and playing around with that and seeing those changes come to real life was so satisfying.
It's not the sort of thing we'd normally do as a healthcare provider, but having the chance to edit and adjust and get a bit into the IT side of it, it was actually really fun because there's so much information in the toolkit and you need to be able to not overwhelm the poor person at the other end of it to think, oh, where do I start? But yeah, being able to have it laid out and designed in a step-by-step manner hopefully means the user at the other end can walk through it and produce a great service, but not being overwhelmed.
I really just loved having the time to delve much more deeply into prehabilitation because it's an area that I'm passionate about, and I feel lucky to be involved in the service in delivering prehabilitation at Peter Mac. So it was just nice to have the time to go more deeply into it.
I think it'll actually do what it says it's going to do. It will just provide a really great resource for clinicians to go ahead and set up their own prehabilitation services in their own health services. And with patients or consumers, they'll be able to use this as a resource to help them prepare for surgery.
For patients, I hope that it leads to, they find it an interesting, useful and motivating resource on the benefits of prehabilitation. It will hopefully answer some questions they may have, and it might trigger some other questions which they can go to their healthcare team with. We can make a real difference to people, a key teachable moment, and we can make a massive change in their life, not just major moment in their healthcare journey, but just in their life in general. We know that prehabilitation leads to stronger, fitter, more robust patients who undergo major surgery with fewer complications.
I can probably really relate to how it will impact clinicians because I have been a clinician implementing a prehab service without this toolkit, and it certainly has its challenges, and I hope some of the struggles that we have and some of our learnings really shine through the toolkit, because I do hope that people or clinicians can certainly use this toolkit to develop a really robust service that is targeted to what they want and to what their patients need.
It is just so rich in how much resource that you can go and just put into real life practice. We've tried to be as clear cut and as precise as we can to just hand hold basically and just be there by your side as they set up new services. And for patients themselves, how rich and extensive the toolkit is on the patient-facing side. It's all there.
It's so lovely to be able to have this toolkit to put it out there so other services can benefit. We've got our patients at Peter Mac obviously are so lucky to have this service, so it's great to be able to share it so other services can provide it for their patients.
I think the best thing about it is it's not really that we're trying to get people to do what we've done. So we're not just saying this is what we've done, this is what you should be doing. It's more about what you can do in your health service.
We did have the consumers not just say what they want out of the consumer end of the toolkit, they were able to tell us what they think the clinicians need to know when the clinicians are running a prehab service. So that was gold. That in prehab they've got to engage, and it's their hard work that's getting themselves prepared for surgery. The clinicians are just the sort of support crew and the coaches. So having the consumers involved in building this sort of project makes it guaranteed to work.
Even if it's one patient that you're helping, it gives you the confidence to know it's going to make a difference, and it helps you map out all the little creases that each health service will have that we can guide you on the toolkit, but it's so nuanced to be what your service can provide and can do. And even if you take little parts of it and put it in action, it's still going to make a difference for a patient's life.
We never could create this entire thing without dedicated time. Specifically, I guess if you're looking at getting a prehab service and you're trying to think about how do we set that up locally, look at the website because it's fantastic. Look at the first tab we have, which is all around prehab setup. But I think knowledge, looking for these opportunities, whether it's through WICNICS or within your own hospital or within the government or the state that you're working with, just to be able to get a group of clinical experts together to develop a project that is the game changer.
Sometimes it feels overwhelming or daunting when you're starting out on a project, no matter the size of it. But I think if you seek out like-minded colleagues, supportive colleagues, and you build a good team around yourself, then you're more likely to succeed. I think if you feel passionate about something, then yeah, you can make it happen. I'm lucky to work in a department and a wider service that recognises the value of prehabilitation. So what I'd say to my colleagues is well done and keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a great job in making a difference.
I think prehab is such a ever evolving and changing landscape. So we're constantly seeing new evidence come out. We've got new guidelines coming out. Our prehab service here at Peter Mac is one of the first in Australia, particularly in oncology. What I do hope is that this toolkit can be used to make prehab a lot more standardised across Australia.
It's significant for patients, and they tell us that every time they leave the ward, it makes a difference in their lives having this prehab service and having that preparation.
Here, so every health service is different. So I think it does enable that to happen anywhere you are. And I also think if it's not a reality for your health service to start up a prehab service just now, the resources will help you prepare your patients for surgery anyway.
I had a lovely patient, and she was like, I felt like I was just talking to a friend by the end of our time in prehab together. And just seeing her on the wards after, she was like, I wouldn't have been able to survive this without prehab. It just gets you right in the heart to know what you do is important and valuable.
A big thank you to all of our content leads that were shown there, and just noting that Fiona Lynch was missing from that video, who was a psychologist that inputted. Really a truly multidisciplinary team that worked on this toolkit. Before we show you the website, I'd just like to point out that one of the key deliverables of the project was to establish a prehab community of practice. So this is so we continue to learn from each other in this important area of work. So you can see the QR code on the screen. If you're interested in joining this community of practice, please do so via that link. We're looking to run biannual interactive webinars that will be free and really give the opportunity to connect and discuss and further progress in this space. So now I'd like to show you the website. So you can see here on the screen, just to start with, we have two main sections of our toolkit, our patient-facing resource and our health professional toolkit, and I'll show you that now.
Welcome to the PrEP for Cancer Surgery website. This quick tour will guide you through the key sections designed for clinicians, patients, and carers. This platform was co-designed with clinicians, patients, and carers to be accessible and easy to navigate. Resources are divided into two main areas, one for health professionals and one for consumers. Let's begin with the health professionals section. On the clinician side, you can use the left-hand sidebar menu to move between sections. You can return to the home page at any time by clicking the logo at the top left. Additional navigation features include filter by discipline or interest. This highlights content tailored to your specialty. On this page menu, jump directly to headings within the page. Print button. Generate a printable PDF of the current page. Share function. Share content easily via your preferred platform. The health professionals section includes resources to support both service setup and frontline clinical delivery. Service setup includes guidance, tools, and checklists for setting up services. Service self-assessment checklist is a good starting point. There is also information on the core components of a prehabilitation program. Medical optimization includes evidence-based information on the medical context of surgical cancer prehabilitation. Topics include the impact of cancer therapies and risk stratification. Additional reading is available for related medical topics. Clinical delivery provides practical tools for frontline staff. These core topics support whole person care and are structured into 3 stages: screening, assessment, and intervention. Each has a subsection relating to exercise, nutrition, and psychology, and provides information on relevant screening tools, what is involved in a comprehensive discipline assessment, with assessment templates available, and detailed guidelines around discipline intervention approaches. There are also dedicated pages to universal intervention, which includes information on surgery school, exercise, nutrition, psychology, and behaviour change information relevant to all patients before surgery. The evaluation section outlines how to embed evaluation into service delivery from the outset. It includes suggested frameworks, measures, and practical tools. Additional resources for clinicians. Here you'll find supplementary information including journal articles, guidelines, and external links for further learning. To explore the patient resources, click the Patient Resources button in the top menu. This will open a new tab, so clinicians don't lose their place. You can also access this section directly from the home page. The patient section was co-designed with consumers and carers to ensure clarity and accessibility. It provides background information on cancer and prehabilitation, and guidance organised into the key stages of the surgical journey: preparing for surgery, during your hospital stay, and recovery at home. With each section providing information on physical, nutritional, and emotional health. Each section includes videos, printable PDFs, and activity recommendations written in plain language and optimised for mobile devices. Additional resources are also available for carers and patients. Navigation for patients is consistent with the clinician's side. The left-hand menu provides an overview of all pages. The right-hand menu allows quick access to sections within a page. Print and share functions are available on all pages. Patients can also move through content chronologically using buttons at the bottom of each page. The site is fully mobile-friendly, reflecting co-design feedback to support accessibility. Whether you're a clinician, patient, or carer, the Prep for Cancer Surgery website is here to support you through the prehabilitation journey.
I hope you enjoyed having a little look at the toolkit. Part of this project was to evaluate the toolkit use. So you can see here some of the evaluation results that we had. So we undertook this evaluation with colleagues at Western Health, Bendigo Health, and St Vincent's Health, and we looked at the acceptability of the toolkit, the understanding of purpose, and some feedback on key components of the resource. And you can see here that we achieved really good evaluation results. Also, we got participants, so we had 19 participants from across different disciplines participate, and they really rated the perceived impact of the toolkit as quite high. So now I'd just like to pass back to Alicia to talk a little bit more about some of the qualitative responses.
Thanks, Janelle. Yes, so as Janelle mentioned, in addition to the evaluation, there was a qualitative component. And you'll see here, I think, what are encouraging comments on the screen. So the content was well backed by evidence. The toolkit's comprehensive but not overwhelming. And things such as, I think this would be a helpful guide for anyone considering setting up or modifying an existing service. And you've also heard Catherine, one of our clinicians in an earlier video, who's really just encouraging you to say it's okay if you don't have a prehab service in your health service, but these are patient resources that you can start using and sharing, so irrespective of having the actual EFT to start a dedicated service, the patient resources in itself should be helpful. So we're heading towards the end of our toolkit presentation, but what we really wanted to do was to give you a video of Drew, who is one of our consumers who participated not only in our steering committee, but in the co-design of the toolkit and also in the evaluation sessions of the toolkit. And really, what better opportunity than to hear from someone who has been on this journey themselves and been through a prehabilitation program, and you'll hear the impact that this has had on Drew. Thanks.
Was when I went through my cancer journey, my sort of cancer battle, I found that I was able to get through it quite easily because I already had been given a little bit of advanced knowledge of how important it was to prep. And it was all about making sure that my body was as fit and it was ready to go into what it was about to undertake. It was so important. It was so vital to make sure that my body was ready for what it was about to go through. You know, like chemo, radiation, surgery. It's tough. It's tough on the body. You get given that news which you're not ready for. You're sort of told, okay, you've got a pretty tough 6 months, 8 months ahead of you, and then if you were just then sort of waiting for your chemo appointments to come up, whereas I found that if people are aware of how important and how beneficial prepping yourself, for me, it then meant that I had this like whole focus. Okay, so this is what I've got to do before, then I've got to, you know, get through that section, and then I'll finally get to lay around and relax. You know, like when I'm recovering from surgery, you know, like I need to be doing all of my prep now. So as soon as I knew that this project was happening and it was exactly along the lines of, you know, like what really benefited me, so that's why I was like, okay, yeah, great. You know, like if you're looking for consumers, you know, like to sort of be able to put their voice or input, hand up. The meetings that I did participate in, I was always so inspired, I suppose, but really, really, really delighted at the amount of energy and enthusiasm and everything that all of the medical professionals that were on the team, all of them, they were all into it. Which was so great. I found the site when I went on to sort of look through in this role, I found it so easy to navigate. I found that I was able to just, you know, like sort of by looking at one section and then you then went straight onto that video and then all the information that I needed was all there, and it was great to have it all in one place. I would love to think that other patients or, you know, like other people that are about to undergo, you know, like what they have to undergo, from anywhere around the world could access this toolkit, and it's just wonderful, uber informative information. I remember when I first was diagnosed and you first hear those words, you know, like the amount of sites that I had saved, you know, like all your tabs across the top of because I would find a little bit of information and I'd think, oh, I might need that at some point, or I better save that, and I better save that. So I had so many saved tabs, whereas, you know, like now having the access to one toolkit, it's amazing. It's amazing. All of those people that are going to hear those dreaded words, knowing that they can now get information and support to take away, because believe me, having knowledge is power, yeah? And in these situations, knowledge is also calming. You know, like knowledge gives you a little bit of inner support and a little bit of inner calm. Just thank you so much. Thank you so much, because as I said, their energy, their enthusiasm, their focus, you know, like and obviously their knowledge and expertise, everything that they, like brought into it, as a consumer to now know that that's out there and that that's going to be accessible it's just going to be a life changer. It's going to be such a life changer.
So, look, a huge thank you to Drew, our fabulous consumer. I think you will have the same thoughts I do, which is just thanking him for sharing his story with us and his experience with us, which is just so powerful. But my reflection is that Drew has just been so passionate but purpose-led in his reason for being involved in our Toolkit project. And so a huge thank you to Drew. Earlier in our presentation today, I also introduced to you a consumer that was involved in the grant writing process with us called Tori. And Tori was really driven to see prehab introduced into Tasmania. And I'm really delighted today to be able to say that we are in early discussions with the with the Tasmanian government and the Tasmanian Health Services to introduce prehabilitation services. So we really hope that that honours Tori and a legacy that we know that she wanted to leave. So without further ado, I'm very excited to officially launch our toolkit. You'll find the link to it here, either via the QR code on your screen or via the URL below. Feel free to also contact us on the email address below if you need any assistance with anything in terms of setting up a service or any information that you might like to reach out to us for. My big request of you today is to please take this toolkit and share it. Share it not only with your professional networks, but also your personal networks. Join us in our advocacy cause to scale and spread prehabilitation services to anyone who one day might need them. What we dearly hope is that these services are available for people so that they can get the best outcomes. And we do that through our collective power. So thank you for joining us on our advocacy cause. We wish you all the best in the use of the toolkit and sharing it as broadly as you possibly can. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.